I pulled my car into the cul-de-sac, the soft hum of the engine filling the silence around me. The houses on Willow Bend Drive all looked the same. Trimmed hedges, white fences, two-car garages. The kind of neighborhood where every lawn seemed cloned from a catalog. It was hot that day, but the street felt strangely still, like the air was holding its breath. Kids' bicycles leaned against driveways, yet no one was outside. No barking dogs, no passing cars, just my tires crunching lightly over the asphalt. I checked the next delivery on my phone. House number 37, Willow Bend. I glanced up at it from inside. My car. The house stood at the very end of the cul-de-sac, shadowed by two massive oak trees. Unlike the other houses, there were no decorations, no plants, no signs of life. Its curtains were drawn tight, and the paint looked faded. The driveway was empty. I grabbed the small cardboard package from the passenger seat and walked up the path. As I approached, I noticed something odd. A faint scraping sound behind the front door, like nails dragging across wood. I froze, listening, but it stopped just as quickly. I shook it off, telling myself it was probably the house settling. I snapped the delivery photo, placed the box down, and walked back to the car. But before I could start the engine, my phone vibrated. A text message from an unknown number. It simply read, "Don't deliver to that house again." I arrived back on Willow Bend the next afternoon. My stomach knotted when I saw the Mir 37 pop up on my route again. I thought about skipping it, but Amazon tracks everything. Skipping wasn't an option. As I parked near the curb, I noticed him. At the far end of the street, partially concealed behind a thick oak trunk, stood a man. His posture was rigid, arms straight at his sides, head slightly tilted as though he was studying me. I raised my hand to wave, but he didn't move, not even a blink. I grabbed the package from the seat. It was larger this time, heavier. As I examined it, I noticed the shipping label wasn't aligned correctly. It had clearly been peeled off and reattached, leaving faint creases beneath the surface. That's when my instinct screamed at me to leave, but policy forced me forward. Halfway, up the walkway, I glanced back. The man was gone. Back in my car, I stared at the package like it was alive. The address matched, but the weight felt wrong, heavy but uneven, like whatever was inside wasn't supposed to be there. That night, I pulled up my delivery logs. Something wasn't right. None of the deliveries to number 37 appeared on my dashboard. According to Amazon's system, I had never delivered there at all. The next morning, another package appeared, marked as high priority. I told myself I'd deliver it, but only after I saw what was inside. I pulled into an empty parking lot, slit the tape open, and carefully lifted the flaps. Inside were dozens of photographs, bundled in rubber bands. Every single photo showed the same person. A young woman, sleeping in different beds, different rooms, different nights. Her eyes were always closed, but in the last photo, they were open. The name stuck in my mind like a splinter. Eric Haldren. After I saw it on the shipping label, I called Amazon's support line, my voice trembling as I explained what was happening. The woman on the line paused, typing rapidly, before finally replying. "Sir, there is no active residence at Number 37 Willow Bend. That house has been vacant for years." I hung up and searched public records myself. She wasn't lying. There'd been a fire in 2017. A fatal one. The sole victim listed? Eric Haldren. The same Eric whose name was printed neatly on the label I'd just signed for. That night, I heard footsteps outside my apartment window. I pulled up across the street from Number 37, just as the sun dipped low, painting the cul-de-sac in a pale orange haze. The house looked dead. The grass grew knee-high. Boards covered the windows. The front door hung crooked on rusted hinges. But through a small gap between two planks, I saw movement. I stepped closer. Inside, the living room was stacked floor to ceiling with identical packages. Dozens of them, untouched, undelivered, gathering dust. I felt watched. The hair on my neck prickled. I turned to leave, but froze when I heard soft breathing just behind the door. I quit the next day. No notice. No explanation. But leaving the job didn't stop anything. 2 weeks later, The first package showed up at my apartment door. No return address, no tracking number. Then came another. And another. Last night, I woke up at 3:17 a.m. to find one sitting inside my living room. I didn't hear the door open. I didn't hear anyone come in. I still haven't opened it. This morning, I got another text from the same number. You forgot one delivery. I moved again today, but somehow I already know they found me. I accepted the route because it paid extra. It was a quiet Friday night in mid-November, cold enough that my breath hung in the air. My car's heater fought against the chill, and the only sounds were the rumble of the engine and the occasional hiss of tires on damp pavement. The last delivery on my route popped up around 12:14 a.m. The address was on a cul-de-sac I didn't recognize, tucked deep inside a newer suburban development. As I rolled down the empty street, I noticed the houses here were huge and spaced far apart, with long driveways leading to darkened front porches. The whole neighborhood seemed asleep. That's when I first saw the van. It was parked several houses down from my destination, a plain white cargo van without any logos or plates. Its windows were tinted completely black. I parked outside the assigned house and grabbed the package. As I walked up the path, I felt an itch between my shoulder blades, the weight of being watched. I forced myself to keep moving, placed the box on the porch, snapped the required photo, and turned back toward my car. That was when the van's headlights came on. The driver didn't get out. The engine didn't start. The lights just stayed on, glaring at me from the darkness. I sat in my car for a full minute, pretending to scroll through my phone while I kept the van in my peripheral vision. The lights were off again, the silhouette unmoving. I put the car in gear and pulled away slowly, taking a left turn out of the cul-de-sac. The van didn't move. For a moment, I told myself I was overthinking it, probably just another delivery driver on break, maybe sleeping inside. But 4 minutes later, at the next intersection, I glanced in the rearview mirror. It was there, half a block behind me. Its headlights stayed off, making it harder to spot, but I recognized the distinct shape instantly. I slowed down, turned right onto a smaller road, then made another turn immediately after. My heart pounded as I watched the mirror. The van turned too. I pressed harder on the gas, weaving through side streets, making random detours. I thought I lost it at one point, but when I reached the next major road, it slid back into view, keeping just enough distance to avoid suspicion. That's when I realized it wasn't random. It wasn't coincidental. The van was following me. I needed to know if I was imagining things. I pulled into a well-lit gas station on the main road and parked near the convenience store entrance. I killed the engine and waited. A few moments later, the van rolled into the lot and parked 2 rows behind me. It didn't pull up to a pump, didn't approach the store, just sat there, idling softly. I turned slightly in my seat and glanced back. The front seats were empty. I froze, my breath hitching, before realizing the driver was reclined low, nearly out of sight. Then I saw it. Behind the driver's seat, where the interior separated into the cargo area, something shifted. A faint silhouette moved, just enough to catch the overhead light. Someone was sitting in the back. My chest tightened. I started my car and drove off without looking back. When I called Amazon's support line, they treated it like nothing. The rep told me to stay aware of surroundings and file an incident report if anything happened. That night, I parked my car 2 streets over and checked my locks 3 times before sleeping. At least, I thought I slept. But around 3 a.m., my phone vibrated on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. Do not quit your route. My next route was on Sunday. It was raining hard, the kind of cold drizzle that made the roads shine like glass under the streetlights. Halfway through the shift, I saw the next delivery pop up on my phone. The address didn't look familiar, so I tapped on the map. There was nothing there. The pin dropped in the middle of an undeveloped patch of land near the outskirts of town. No houses within a quarter mile. As I debated calling support, headlights appeared ahead on the shoulder of the road. The white van. Its engine rumbled softly as it faced me, parked directly across from the pin location. That was when I knew this wasn't an accident. Someone had placed that fake address deliberately, knowing the system would send me there. I turned the car around and drove straight back toward town. Minutes later, I checked the mirror. The van was behind me again. The address on my next route led me toward the edge of the industrial district. Most of the buildings were long abandoned, windows boarded and walls tagged with graffiti. One warehouse stood out. Its bay door was open, and light spilled faintly from inside. I parked a safe distance away and walked toward it slowly, hugging the shadows. Inside, stacks of Amazon packages rose nearly to the ceiling, untouched and unscanned. Some of the labels were weeks old. My phone buzzed violently in my pocket. A text from the same number. "We finished tonight." A low rumble approached behind me. The van turned into the lot and stopped, blocking my car from the road. The driver's door opened slowly. I ran straight inside, ignoring the noise of boots hitting concrete somewhere behind me. The warehouse was massive and cluttered with pallets, racks, and half-crushed boxes. I ducked behind a stack of packages and crouched low. Footsteps echoed, faintly from the far side of the building. At least 3 different sets, moving quickly. I tried holding my breath, but my chest betrayed me, rising and falling too fast. Then a voice spoke from somewhere near the center of the warehouse. "Calm. Cold. You were supposed to deliver it." Silence followed. When I finally dared to move, the warehouse was empty. The van was gone. The next morning, I woke up to a route notification on my phone. The assigned address was my own apartment. The night shift always felt different from the day. The warehouse buzzed under fluorescent lights, but the rest of the city slept, and something about that made the air feel heavier. I worked Station 14, scanning packages, sticking labels, and pushing them down the belt. Most nights blurred together. At around 2:30 a.m., a small black box slid toward me. I reached for it automatically but stopped when I noticed there was no barcode. The surface was smooth, matte, and cold against my fingertips, even though the warehouse was warm. I tried scanning it anyway, but the device beeped sharply and flashed red. "No data found. Problem bin," my supervisor called out when he saw my hesitation. I dropped it there and went back to work. The next night, the same box came down the belt again. I froze, staring at it. Same weight, same feel, same lack of a barcode. I asked my supervisor about it, but he swore he'd sent it to the secondary inspection area. Nobody admitted putting it back on my line. That was the first night I heard faint footsteps behind me when the aisle was empty. During my next break, I went to the small workstation computer and typed in the manifest reference ID printed on the label. The screen returned nothing. No destination, no origin, no history. Packages don't just appear out of nowhere, yet this one did. I studied the label more closely and noticed the corner was slightly curled. I peeled it back carefully and found a different label beneath it, faintly faded, but still readable. Eleanor Pierce, an address in Greenfield Heights, about 20 minutes away. After my shift ended at 4:00 a.m., I drove out there. The house looked abandoned. Boards covered the windows, and the grass reached up past the porch steps. A porch light flickered faintly, but there was no sound inside. As I turned to leave, an older man from the house next door stepped onto his porch. "You looking for Eleanor?" he asked. I nodded cautiously. "She's been dead 6 years," he said flatly before retreating inside and locking his door. By the next night, I was convinced someone was messing with me. Halfway through the shift, I turned to grab a new stack of labels and froze. The black package sat on my station again, perfectly centered on the table. This time there was no label at all. I checked with the 2 associates working nearby, but they swore they hadn't touched it. Frustrated, I carried the box across the warehouse to the problem freight cage, a locked holding area for unprocessed parcels. Only supervisors had the code. 2 hours later, while moving pallets near the far aisle, I walked past the cage and stopped dead in my tracks. The heavy steel door stood wide open. Inside, the package was gone. Before I could move, the door slammed shut behind me with a deafening clang. The overhead lights flickered once and steadied again. I didn't stay in that aisle for the rest of the shift. After work, I grabbed the box from my station before anyone noticed and carried it out to my car. I set it on the passenger seat and stared at it for a long time. weighing whether I should open it at all. Finally, I grabbed my box cutter and sliced through the tape carefully. Inside was a small black device, smooth and rectangular. No markings or logos anywhere. A faint red light pulsed softly on one side, and a nearly invisible pinhole lens reflected the street lamp above my windshield. It was a camera. Before I could flip it over, my phone vibrated on the dashboard. A text from an unknown number appeared. "Put it back now." I called the number back, gripping the phone tightly, but an automated voice told me the line was disconnected. I decided to drive back to the warehouse and return the package immediately. When I pulled into the lot, the gates were locked. A security guard approached and told me no one was allowed inside after hours. The next morning, I went straight to my supervisor's office, laid the device on his desk, and explained everything. He barely glanced at it before sliding it back toward me. "Don't overthink it. Just deliver the freight," he said flatly. That night, I walked to my station and froze. Another identical black package sat waiting. This one had a handwritten note taped to the top. The uneven letters read, "Stop opening what isn't yours." I walked into the warehouse the next day and turned in my badge. I told myself it was over. That night, I found a black package sitting outside my apartment door. No label, no return address. The following night, I woke up to find another one placed neatly on my living room floor. I never heard the door open. I never heard anyone come in. I haven't opened either of them. Last night, while lying in bed, I heard faint clicking sounds from inside my closet, soft and irregular, like a camera lens adjusting in the dark. This morning, my phone buzzed with a new delivery notification. The sender's name was Eleanor Pierce. The tracking status said "delivered" to my address. The shift started like any other. I grabbed my route, loaded the packages, and hit the road. At around 9:45 p.m., I noticed the last stop on my list looked strange. The app listed the street as Route T, 109, but when I searched for it separately, nothing came up. No street view, no listings, nothing but blank terrain. I called support, but after a long wait, the rep told me to just follow the in-app directions. The route took me out past the edge of town, down cracked rural roads where streetlights became less frequent until there were none at all. The air outside grew damp and cold. Eventually, the navigation told me to turn right onto a narrow lane lined with trees. There were no signs, no markers, nothing indicating a road existed here. A quarter-mile down, the app told me to stop. The screen showed a blinking blue dot in the middle of nowhere, but there were no houses, no driveways, just dense woods stretching in every direction. Then, in the distance, I noticed a faint white glow through the trees. I pulled forward slowly, tires crunching over loose gravel until the dirt path opened up into a short stretch of pavement lit by a single crooked street lamp. 4 houses sat at the end of the road, perfectly aligned, 2 on each side. Every house looked the same. Same pale siding, same dark shutters, same empty porches. I checked my delivery app again, but the address on the screen didn't match any of the house numbers. The system insisted I was at the correct destination. I killed the engine and sat there for a moment, listening to the night air press against the windshield. Something felt wrong. The silence was too heavy, like sound itself refused to enter this place. Then I noticed it. In the rearview mirror, just beyond the dim reach of the street lamp, a figure stood in the trees. They weren't moving. They were just watching. I grabbed the package and stepped out, the gravel shifting under my boots. The cold dampness of the air clung to my skin immediately. I walked up to the first house, searching for a house number, but stopped when I noticed the front windows. There weren't any. The frames were there, perfectly shaped, but the siding stretched across them seamlessly, like one unbroken surface. The second house was the same. By the time I reached the third, I felt my chest tightening with unease. That was when I heard it. A faint tapping sound from somewhere. Inside, soft and irregular, like knuckles brushing against wood. Then came whispering. Low and unintelligible, but definitely human. I spun around to check the tree line. The figure was gone. I jogged back to my car, slammed the door shut, and started the engine. The headlights cut across the houses, and for a second, I swore I saw movement in one of the shadows between them. I grabbed the package from the passenger seat to double-check the label, but froze when I saw there wasn't one. No shipping code, no customer name, no return address. I checked my delivery history, thinking maybe it was assigned manually, but the app showed nothing. Somehow, this box ended up in my car without being scanned into my route. Someone had placed it there. I reached for my phone to call support, but before I could dial, the screen lit up violently as an incoming call came through. The ID displayed a single word: unknown. I hesitated, staring at the glowing screen before finally answering. A distorted mechanical voice rasped quietly on the other end. Deliver the package. Last house on the right. I demanded to know who was speaking, but the line cut out instantly. Against everything screaming inside my head, I stepped out and approached the last house. The front door stood slightly ajar, a faint draft seeping out and chilling the air around me. As I placed my foot on the first porch step, a low voice whispered my name from inside the darkness. Then again, and again, louder. I backed away slowly until the whispering stopped. That was when my car headlights shut off. I sprinted back to the car, yanking on the handle until the locks finally clicked open. I slammed the door and started the engine. Behind me, the 4 houses stayed dark and silent. But the package sat on the passenger seat where I had left it. My phone buzzed sharply. A text from an unknown number flashed on the screen. You didn't finish the delivery. I floored the accelerator and didn't stop until I reached the main road. Then, my navigation app updated automatically. A new destination appeared. It wasn't Route 109 anymore. It was my apartment. When I pulled into the lot, a small black package sat waiting outside my door. No label, no name, no return address.